Okay, here's a general orientation chart of the entire inland water system. Up on the top of the chart, you can see the target area in a little red circle. Down at the bottom, there's a red X. That's my home port at Stuart Island. I had to go through the whole thing. It was a 400-mile round trip, considering all the running around I did in there. One hell of a boat ride. Here's a picture of the San Juan Islands with Stuart Island circled in red, the Stuart Island complex. Here's the Stuart Island complex, which consists of Stuart Island, that's the big one with the skinny neck. There's a state park at the head of the bay right on the neck, which gives you access to both sides. Satellite Island on the north side, John's Island to the east, and as you can see, I have pointed out little Gossip Island in the red. So what I'm going to do on this trip was I stayed overnight in Reid Harbor, that's the big long bay on the south, and then I just kind of headed out to Gossip Island on a little bit of a day trip to see if I could find Paul Bunyan's footprint. And the expedition was successful. This is a really, really great destination. And you should really go up there sometime if you have any way of getting to it. Okay, here is Gossip Island on my marine GPS screen. Marine GPS is a little different than what most of you are used to. It doesn't show streets and topographical features and that sort of thing. It mainly shows bottom contours and underwater features and land masses used for marine navigation. The two marks I put on the island are at the top. There's a little blue flag. That is the landing area. Down at the bottom, to the left, there's another blue flag. That's the actual location of the footprint. Now, at the very end of this feature, at the end of the whole film, I will reveal the actual GPS coordinates so you can program them in and go find this unique feature. So stay tuned, folks. Okay, this is Gossip Island, and the area in red is where I believe the footprint to be. If you compare this to the previous shot, you can maybe figure it out a little bit better. The bright white shell beach, crushed shell beach up at the north end, is the only landing area on the island. It's really small, and I really had to grease the boat in between the rock formations. So, and you can also see what looks like trails on this tiny island. I would put its land area at probably 1 acre or less. The trails are made by otters, which live on the island. And they run around a lot, and they make these little trails. So this is tiny Gossip Island, so let's get in the boat and head out of Reid Harbor and head for Gossip. Okay, we're headed out of Reid Harbor and headed for Gossip Island. One of the things about a extended trip is sooner or later you do have to ride out a weekend, and the San Juans are close enough to population centers of Anacortes, LaConner, Bellingham area that on sunny summer weekends like this they just get inundated with boats. So first thing I got to do is pick my way out of Reid Harbor through several hundred boats that are tied up. And then after I got through there was about 10 million crab pots to weave my way through, so it was a slow trip the whole way. Lots and lots of plastic yuppie fashion boaters. Paul Bunyan's footprint was discovered by the youngest member of our party, so Lee says, on the great kayak trip of 1997. And I didn't have a GPS then, and I've always wanted to go back and document its location, so I am going to take a real good shot at it here on this trip. Stuart Island's a great place. It has a great state park and wonderful county roads to hike along, hike out to Turn Point. Lots and lots of stuff to do at Stuart Island. It's a good place to camp. The campgrounds are fairly nice. So have at it. Well, I finally picked my way through most of the crab traps after getting out of all the boats and making my way towards Gossip Island. You can see it starting to show up dead ahead, a little bit to the right. It's a pretty little island. There's not much to do, and you might be able to do it on a day trip in a kayak if you're interested in a really long paddle through some fierce riptides. You'd launch at Reid Harbor and come up here to Stuart. I would suggest doing it on an overnight trip. Bring your camping gear and set up in Reid Harbor and stay for a day, because there's a lot to do. It's got a great state park, pretty nice campgrounds. There's trails you can hike all the way out to Turn Point. There's a beautiful view of the Harrow Strait and the Canadian Gulf Islands, and lots of stuff to do on Stuart. So if you're just paddling out and kind of paddling around it, you're really kind of missing the boat. Not to mention the little side trip to Gossip Island to see if you can find Paul Bunyan's footprint. Now remember, at the end of the feature, I'm going to reveal its exact location, the GPS coordinates. Okay, I'm lining her up on final approach, and we're going into little bitty Gossip Island. You can see the White Shell Beach, which is the only landing area on the island. This is going to be a white knuckle flight or landing, because the landing area is so small and is tucked between two big rock outcroppings. So you take this guy on slow bell. Getting lined up, and we're going in. A lot going on here. I got to keep one eye on the GPS charts, making sure there's no keel kissers or anything in front of me. Keep one eye on the charts, the other one on the depth finder, and both of them out front. Getting closer. And here we go. It's a nice little island. There is a spot on there you could camp on. I don't know if it's allowed or not. It is an undeveloped state park. If you do, don't build a fire. And if you do camp on there, I'm not going to guarantee that if a state park boat comes along and spots you, that they might just tell you to move somewhere else. There aren't any signs posted on it. There used to be a no fire sign on it, but that was all. It's all weathered out now. All that's left is the board it was pasted to. And we're going in. Shallow water alarms ringing. Imagine that. Crunch. I kind of botched it there. I didn't have my long line set up. Oh well, it's a really nice calm day, so I can get away with this. I always like to put my best side forward in these films. Now get out one of my, what I call one of my creaky old man tools. With all my injuries from Vietnam and other crazy adventures, I'm not very flexible anymore. So I built this custom stool to help me get over the side when I beach. I went to the back to get the stern anchor squared away. Yeah, coming back. Now I get the stool out and hit the beach. Get everything secured and then climb back in the boat again and get all the equipment. That's a cheap plastic stool from Walmart, and the first time I tried to use it, naturally it floated because there's air cells in it. So on a camping trip, I heated up a screwdriver in the stove and stabbed holes in all the air cells so it would sink. It still wouldn't sink, so I tied rocks to it, and that worked a little bit. When I got back home, I bolted two great big iron rails to the bottom of it, 2 angle irons, and that takes her down and makes her work even in the water. Now I run the line up the beach and tie up to a scrub oak. I believe those are Gary oak, which is quite a rare plant in this area. It's a good sturdy branch, keep her tied up. The tide is still rising a little bit. Find a branch that's big enough, strong enough. Okay, got her. Now I'll get the stool positioned where I can use it. I also tie it to the boat so it doesn't move around. It also acts, it's so heavy it acts as kind of an anchor also. Once ashore at Gossip Island, you just kind of take a look around, and as you can tell by the trees, that this is one hell of a windy place. They're all stunted and twisted. The winds come ripping up the Harrow Strait from the Strait of Juan de Fuca and just really pound this area. Wouldn't want to be camped out here in a storm, if they allow camping. Now here's a view from Gossip Island, looking out over a little cluster of islands. To the east there's Skipjack Island, I believe, Flat Top Island, Cactus Island, Spiden Island, and way in the distance part of San Juan Island where Reid Harbor is. And to the right of that is open expanse of water looking south down the Harrow Strait to the Strait of Juan de Fuca. And the black line in the farthest distance on the right hand side of the screen is the peaks of the Olympic Mountains just barely peeking over the horizon. Okay, here it is. Here's Paul Bunyan's footprint. Great big old waffle stomper work boot print in solid rock. I took my little whisk broom with me and I swept it out and got all the vegetation away from it. I would estimate that it's approximately 100 to 150 feet away from the little White Shell Beach landing area on the right-hand side. And it's also up very close to where the vegetation starts growing, well above the high tide line. This was discovered, as Lee says, the one who first noticed it was a little lady named Katie, who was a then teenager. She was a friend of she was the daughter of one of the ladies on that 1997 kayak expedition. But anyhow, it's a pretty neat, unique feature. Okay, here's Paul Bunyan's footprint, big old waffle stomper boot, in relation to my sandal, which is a size 10. Man, that guy had some big feet, but of course it is a really big legend too, so I guess that's appropriate. Now here is where I took the GPS reading, right in the middle of Paul Bunyan's footprint where it lays. So if you want the coordinates for this, Have your finger on the pause button and ready, and when the next frame comes up, it will show the actual GPS coordinates so you can get there. Okay, here's the actual reading, taken right in the middle of Paul Bunyan's footprint, brought up on my GPS screen. If you want this reading, just simply hit the pause button and write it down and program it into your GPS unit, and it'll take you right to it. This is the first time that this thing has ever been documented totally like this. So, it was a good trip. This is just one of many objectives that I wanted to meet. And remember, bottom feeders, keep your gills wet, your mouths in the mud, and any trip you come back from is a good one. See you next time. This is Rocky signing off.